All right, since it's 6 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome to LinkedIn for the Biotech Job Seeker presented by Seismic. So, for today, we're going to start with an introduction first to biotech in general in 2021, strategies for using LinkedIn, and then we're going to go into networking, customizing your profile, and we're going to end with a little bit about how you can use Seismic in addition to the LinkedIn resources we're going to cover today to enhance your biotech job search. So a common question we get is, are biotech companies even still hiring? And the answer is a resounding yes. So for example, at the start of the pandemic in Q1, it was actually the single largest quarter for biotech fundraising. So the interest in supporting biotech, hiring in biotech, expanding biotech is certainly not going away anytime soon. It's a booming industry and there's a place in it for you. So we're going to split looking at LinkedIn for the biotech job seeker today into two main frameworks: networking and recruiter and talent acquisition specialist attraction. The networking, we're going to focus on that networking aspect of the typical job seeking framework. And the talent acquisition, we're going to kind of frame into attracting those highly specialized jobs. Some considerations to start for networking strategies. Some concerns you might have going in is how to expand to a new industry. I know there's going to be many people who are coming out of a undergraduate, graduate degree, coming out of academia, looking to transition to industry, or maybe you're already in industry, but you're looking to transition to a different aspect of the biotech industry. So how do you expand into this new network where you might not already have connections built in without resorting to cold messages? How do you know who to connect with, and how do you utilize those connections once you have them? So for the recruiting talent acquisition attraction strategies, something to know is that the talent acquisition specialists, the recruiters that are sometimes used by these companies, whether they are in-house or contract, they don't always have a life science background, or even if they do, they're not necessarily well versed in the particular aspects of the role that they're sourcing for. And so how do you maximize your profile so it's going to come up in searches and be obvious that what your qualifications are for a role that someone who's not in your field might be looking at? And generally, do you appear to be open to being contacted about job offers? So I want to pause here, and we're going to be coming back to this quite a bit because it's going to determine how you go about the networking and profile building aspects. The first step is going to be examining what interests you. So I imagine that because you're here, you're interested or at least considering biotech, but what roles are you looking for right now? This is not always obvious, but you can ask yourself some questions to narrow it down. What skills do you feel best utilizing? What do you know that you never want to do? Do company size and culture matter to you? And if so, what companies out there fulfill those criteria for you? And also, what do you know about the industry career ladder? Are you applying to positions that you are not only qualified for, but are you applying to positions that you might be overqualified for? There's a specific career ladder in the biotech industry, and knowing which role you are looking for is going to really reduce the number of no callbacks that you get. So into the networking aspect. First step is finding those new connections. So why do we network? We network not only to build connections and to show that we're interested in companies, but also to deepen your knowledge of that field so that when you're in front of a hiring manager, they can see that you are not only interested, but engaged and willing to learn about this field. So one very advantageous way to go about this is to go to biotech focused events. Many of them are free, like this one, as you can. These can be region specific biotech events, ones that are focused around career exploration panels. And through this, get an understanding of the type of role or companies you're interested in, and then identify a few valuable connections from these events. I can't stress it enough, take notes during the event, not only about the role, the day-to-day operations, what you like, don't like about it, but also about the people who are speaking and the connections that you want to make. So this is where you're going to reduce that cold aspect of the first message. Use your notes from the event about the speakers that you're interested in connecting with. What did they say that specifically resonated with you? What did you learn from them that you didn't know before? And include that as a sentence in your first reach out message to connect. Networking is not just sharing about yourself, it's also listening to other people. And one of the greatest compliments you can pay to someone is to show that you listen to them. And now you can expand your network. So pay attention to the posts that your new connections are making. They'll often advertise or talk about events that they're going to be speaking at again. And you can attend those that seem most relevant to you and meet new connections. And now those mutual connections are going to be easier to make and expand your network. And also keep in mind that the posts they're making are not always going to be events focused. They might be industry insights, so about funding or the outlook or which companies are expanding in the next year or hiring. That kind of industry insight is invaluable. And for networking, some last important considerations is don't ignore groups. So groups that are centered around the role or industries that you're interested in, and especially those that you already have connections in based on those initial connections and expanding network that you've done previously. Those once those are made, it's easier to ask to join the groups and be admitted. And don't ask for a job from your connections, ask for advice. When you repost their posts, add to the conversation. What did you take away? Why are you interested? People can see when you're looking at their profile, and then they might go visit yours. So that takes us to tailoring your profile. Is it looking its best for your job seeking aspirations? So maximizing your LinkedIn profile for the biotech job seeking. Starting with tagline and summary, tailor your tagline to attract the sectors that you want. And again, don't be afraid to tailor your tagline to the specific roles you want. It's easy to be afraid that if you go a little bit too specific, you're going to miss out on opportunities. But making a little more specific, a little bit more obvious what you want is actually going to attract more of those specialized job offers that you actually do want. And structure your tagline, especially as a job seeker, looking in the moment and forwards. So it's all right to put PhD candidate in biomedical engineering if that's what you're currently doing. But what do you want to do with that? Where do you want to go? What jobs are you seeking? So something like PhD candidate in biomedical engineering, looking to propel innovation in the medical devices industry. Something like that is going to be stronger than that single in the moment tagline. And then for the summary, focus on your accomplishments and tie it all together. This is really where you can write that narrative of you. One of the first questions you're going to get asked in a job interview is either going to be, why do you want this job? Tell me about yourself. Why are you a good fit for this role? And this summary is a way to take the experience that's going to be in your CV or resume and craft that narrative. So one way I suggest crafting it rather than in a linear narrative story, like a resume would be, one after another, is make a word web, write down the role that you're interested in, or the company that you're interested in, the industry you're interested in, and then note your experiences, your education, any of your extracurricular activities, and find a way to make it seem, whether it was intentional or not, like they're all pointing towards this role. That it could not be any more obvious to someone looking at your summary that you are the right fit for this role. And now, since we at Seismic do some recruiting activities as well, I'm going to show you what the recruiter side of LinkedIn looks like and how you can tailor your profile to better facilitate attracting the recruiters in biotech. So the first thing is the spotlights, which is generally how open do you appear to be contacted. So you can be sorted by responsiveness. So for example, if a recruiter reaches out to you and it's not a position that you are interested in, you still reply with a cordial, thank you, but no thank you. I'm not looking for I'm not interested at this time. Because that will at least count towards your responsiveness and make it more likely for people to contact you in the future. Make sure that you have it selected that you're open to work and that you're actively seeking. Having those connections that you're going to build with the networking is going to be important. And also location. You can sort by location that you're willing to work at, but keep in mind that if you are open to relocation, if region is not all that important to you, to make it more general so that you're not excluded from searches. If you would prefer to work in, say, the New York area, but you're open to moving, maybe don't set it just to New York. And for skills, that's going to be that area under your expertise section, your experience section, where you're going to list your techniques that you're familiar with. Make sure that it's comprehensive for your strengths. Again, when you have recruiters or TAs who are looking for someone for a company, they're not necessarily going to know the vernacular completely. So they might be told, we're looking for someone with gene editing experience. They're not necessarily going to know, CRISPR-Cas or Talon, anything like that. So to you, it might seem obvious, well, I put CRISPR-Cas9, I have some gene editing experience. But put both of those down just so it's obvious to someone who maybe doesn't have that specific expertise, but is looking to help fill a position with that expertise, that you are qualified for the position. And sometimes it helps to include fields and specific techniques as well. So say you are familiar with MATLAB, but do you use it for biomedical engineering? Do you use it for electrical engineering? You can include some of those specific fields as well. And it is appropriate at times to highlight relevant soft skills, but not all your soft skills. So if you're looking to obtain like a lab manager role, then management skills can be included. If you're looking for a more customer-facing technical support role, then customer service would be relevant to include, but certainly don't include all your soft skills, just relevant ones. And for the experience section, don't just make it a project overview of everything you worked on. You want to make it really clear what were your specific contributions. So validated an assay, developed a new screening protocol. And include, again, fields and techniques here. Even though they were included in skills, you want to maximize the chance of it coming up in a search. And try to make your job sector obvious. So you can tell it's lab experience, but is it academic lab experience? Is it industry experience? Is it governmental lab experience? Even if it's a internship, make sure it's relatively obvious what sector it's in. And people can also search for what in by the industry you're in. So if you can tailor this to your desired field, that would be great. Of course, if you're interested in transitioning to industry and you've not been in the biotechnology industry before, um, including something like research is fine. But then that's when your keywords, so the techniques, the skills, the fields, in both your experience section and your skills section are going to become even more important to make sure that you're coming up in those searches. So to make sure we have time for questions, but I want to close by saying thank you and stay in touch. You can reach out to me specifically if you have any inquiries about biotech, job seeking, resources, if you want any advice or you have a follow-up question from this presentation. And I'd also encourage you to visit seismic.com for the job seeking services as well, in addition to the LinkedIn resources that I hope you apply after this event. So now I would like to open up to questions. If Danica would like to read me some questions. Danica is also very well versed in biotech. She's one of the founders. So any question I cannot answer, I'm sure she'll also jump in as well.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, so a couple of questions coming in. Is it appropriate to fill in a ton of skills on LinkedIn, similar to adding the large, sometimes repetitive list on Seismic?
I would say for technical skills, yes. For soft skills, not necessarily. Again, soft skills you want to keep relevant, and the LinkedIn can be a little bit different. I'll say the technical skills you're filling in, the ones that are relevant to the position that you are interested in, you can make them a little bit more repetitive. But for example, if you have no interest in, say, a immunologist position, and you have some technical experience with that, but you're not really interested in utilizing that as much as, say, more molecular lab techniques, focus more on the roles you want to attract, because you'll get jobs that you're more interested in. You'll get job offers that you will fare better in interviews with, because you'll be able to show that passion more so. So I'd say you can go pretty redundant, but keep it specialized to the roles you want, not so much to all your skills.
Yeah, no, good answer. And definitely, definitely on LinkedIn, you probably have to do so at a greater level than on Seismic, because with LinkedIn, if you think about the keyword matches being direct, so exact words that are on job descriptions have to be on your profile for people to use LinkedIn to find you. On Seismic, it works a little differently. We have a synonymous kind of linking system on the back end. And so you don't have to have exact words that appear on a job description to be identified as a good match. The words just have to be synonymous, because our technology kind of takes care of that linking on the back end. Quite a few good questions coming in, so I'll power through. How soon should we be open to work on LinkedIn before graduating? How soon basically should we mark our profiles before we're actually ready to being open to work?
That's a very good question. Like I said, the job search typically takes about 4 months, but and the interview processes can also be fairly lengthy. I would say here's actually another option. So LinkedIn has an option where you can, under that same panel where you can say locations and your openness to work, they'll also have an option to put your preferred start date. So if you're available right now, you can put immediately, but you can also put, that you are casually looking as well. I would suggest that you start several months, 4 months, 6 months might be pushing it a little bit, but right around that, right around the 4 month, 5 month time point is what I would suggest. And that will also vary depending on the companies that you are applying to. So that's also something to potentially keep an eye out for as you are building your network. Danica, you've been doing the talent matching longer than me. Do you have a better
Yeah,
answer?
I think that's about right. I'd say about 3 to 4 months. As long as you're aware that if you do get identified and kind of moved forward in the process, I'd have a plan in place where you're either able to start a little earlier, or you have you're upfront with when you can start in the beginning, so that a hiring manager knows exactly how feasible an option you are. Most of the time, when they're looking for people, they're looking for them to start within 2 weeks. So if you're being moved forward through the process, just be upfront with them. If your start date is definitely something that isn't very flexible, but usually what I say, if you're a postdoc or a grad student, you can kind of, work your end date according to when your start date of your new job is, so you can kind of have a second plan in place in case, be optimistic in case you do. In case you do kind of catch the fancy of a hiring manager, you want to have that thought out beforehand, so you're not scrambling at that time.
And this is kind of more of an interview tip than a LinkedIn tip per se, but you can also keep in mind that you're interviewing for a certain job. Honesty is going to be the best policy, being upfront about you might not be available right away. But you can almost think of that interview as another networking opportunity, because if you make a good impression but you're not available right away, that's not to say that they won't have something that's more in your time frame that they could contact you for later. And if you're upfront and honest with them, that's just going to give them a more positive outlook on you as a potential employee.
Yeah, a good point. What are your views on reaching out to consultancy firms or recruiting firms during the job search?
I have heard positive and negative, even among panelists of ours that we've had at different events. Some got wonderful positions through recruiting and consulting firms. Um, Actually, let me clarify. So I'm thinking you can unmute and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking more of reaching out to them as connecting you to positions versus reaching out as a uh, potential job option. So I'm going to answer as that. If I misunderstood, I apologize. I would say go with. I would say go with references. Like I said, people have had positive experiences, negative experiences. I think like a lot, there's good and bad. Especially if, as you build your network, you meet people who were hired through recruiting agencies. Um, do a little bit of advice getting from them about what are the good ones out there.
Do you recommend adding relevant course projects such as senior design project or thesis project as experiences on your LinkedIn profile?
I do, especially if it's a skill that's fairly specialized, especially under the when certainly when you are writing your uh, experience section, you'll include the if you're a grad student, or if you did like a co-op during your bachelor's or master's, um, that experience counts towards especially your skills. Um, as far as coursework, again, if it's very specialized and you're very comfortable with the skill that you obtained through it, then I would include it.
Yeah, and this goes the same for certificates of useful skills like programming skills or R or Python. They definitely make a difference. So definitely add them to your LinkedIn profile and your CV, or resume. Um, Now, here's an interesting question. How can you be more attractive to biotech employers looking for interns on LinkedIn?
Ah, that's a good question. Um, I honestly, I might have Danica jump in on that because I've done more of the sourcing for permanent positions.
Right.
And I don't
So,
necessarily know what the, yeah, good.
yeah, I was going to say, what I would say here is for internship positions, you're really being proactively sought after, right? You have to be the more proactive one in terms of reaching out to the companies. So here I put in all your interests. Your summary statement becomes very important here because it does tell you a little bit tell the company a little bit about you after you've reached out to them. So you're going to reach out to them through LinkedIn emails. They're going to read your email, check your profile a little bit to see who you are. And there your summary statement really needs to kind of tell the story of why you're looking, why they should pick you. So either you have quite a lot of enthusiasm or energy in this space, you're looking to kind of fulfill a picking up a skill that they're going to provide to you. There's something you'd like to do post this internship that is going to connect very much to them, and so they can look at this as a long-term investment where they bring you in as an intern, and then you can kind of they train you up, and then you can potentially you're open or interested in continuing with them in that gene therapy space or in that immuno-oncology space or whatever that might be. So here your summary statement really becomes um, that tool that you could use to highlight yourself a little bit and communicate your your mission and your passions to the person that is going to be looking at your profile. um, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and I will say, even in my limited experience in this arena, I know even for internships, it's definitely not uncommon for them to look you up on LinkedIn, even as an applicant for an internship. So tailoring it similarly to as you would for a specific job versus a specific role in internship is going to be just as useful.
Yeah. All right, I think we might want to wrap that up.
So thank you for attending, everyone.
Thank you.